Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is August 19th, and I'm joined today by Jumi, Beth, Andy, and Brian. And we have a very, I wouldn't say controversial, maybe it is, but a topic that I think will have an very interesting discussion today. It's about the title of the show is When Your AI Breaks Up With You, Attachment Loss in the Next Model. And there's so many different angles I think we can take this. Two pieces of content that I wanted to bring attention to, and we'll put it in, the community that we have, the Daily AI Show Community Hub. It'll be in our newsletter. Please subscribe to that, and we'll put it in the live show here. Two things. One is a post by Christopher Penn. If you don't follow him, one of the most amazing technical folks in AI. Really he focuses on marketing, but worth a follow. A lot of his content, amazing. His piece is on, we're talking about the reaction to the GPT-5 launch, but we're not going to talk about the actual model. We're talking about the reaction that happened, what we saw on the Reddit AMA, after, and some of the fallout from that. So I'm going to go to, I actually, had a conversation with Chris about this, and more so about why there was a reaction like this. Because when in the other piece of content is Sam Altman's post in response to it too, was that OpenAI was very surprised when they depreciated 4.0 and they brought it back. They were surprised about how people were using it as, I don't know whether you call it a companion, developed a relationship. It's as if people lost a friend. So that was the piece, and they didn't. I think the attachments that people were connecting to that particular model was very interesting. And then he was in our conversation. He was talking about how, like, he started off with very interesting, straight up. He goes, humans, there's a lot of people that are awful. And you could probably, there's a lot of things in the world today that you could say, yes, humans are awful. And part of it too is there's a bit of a loneliness where people, and he then went on to talk about his friends over 35, people already 35, are having a tough time building relationships, whether it's romantic relationships, getting new friends, and so on. And there's a lot of different causes that could be social, could be just the way we live in today. And then where if you have a model, how 4.0 is designed, right? I think the base prompt was, you are a helpful assistant. You have a model that essentially, I know they changed the sycophant portion of it, but it's like someone who, or something that reassures you, says, hey, you're on the right track. Like, there isn't any detraction. It's more of it is technically becoming your friend, right? I never see AI that. I see it more as a live-in employee that I can just give whatever task and that. But there's a lot of people who have built, and there was one Reddit commenter who said, it's like, it's such a simplification to just label us as a bunch of losers who have connected to AI, because I don't have a relationship with my AI, but I kind of do, where it's sort of a support. It helps me support. I guess you can take it to one extreme. There's another commenter who said, the best model isn't going 100% on all benchmarks. It's being able to be there for you when everything is falling apart. Now, my initial reaction, be honest on that, my initial reaction is, dude, that's not good for you to do that. But trying to be open with how people are relating to it, and just reading more and more comments, more of like, hey, what is that connection that people are doing? But to finish, just to wrap it up with what Chris Penn said, he goes in his post and in in our conversation, like, we do got to encourage people to connect with people, because the implicate ramifications of us having these type of relationships, more having more of these relationships with these models, is really not a good thing from a human perspective. And I would tend to agree with that. Some people wouldn't, but I guess that's the first part I want to open it up with. And what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know how you push. Sorry if I'm echoing. I sound like I was echoing there for a second. I don't know how we can, as a society, push forward with AI and say that, like, oh, it's going to help you in all these other ways, but don't get attached. Like, keep making sure you get out there with real people. That's really important. But also look at all these amazing things AI can do for you. It's like you can't have it both ways. And I think of the movie Her, but I also think of movies like Wall-E, right? Where, yes, it's a cartoon and stuff like that, but it's showing this far off sort of dystopian future where people are overweight and they don't get out of their moving vehicles and everything is very easy for them. And we're all going to have AI coworkers. I mean, if you choose to stay in the natural business, I think that's, in corporate life, I fully expect that. Yesterday, there was a huge thunderstorm while I was on a call, and the thunder caught me off guard. And I literally did one of those in the thing, and then made myself laugh over it. Now, I went on a side Slack channel to my coworker Sam, and I said, "Did you just see me jump on the side screen?" Luckily, they were sharing a screen. Not that I would have cared one way or the other, but it really caught me off guard. But I said that over to Sam. She said, I didn't notice anything or whatever. And then my internet cut out and I was like, hey, Sam, that's why I just dropped off the call, right? But who's to say that in the future, one of hundreds of AI assistants that I work with every single day that solve big problems for me, but in the work world, solve problems for me, and one of the AI assistants doesn't pop into my Slack and say, hey, I just saw you jump on there. Everything okay? I can tell you have thunderstorms in the area. Just want to make sure everything's cool. An AI assistant, not a real person. And then I respond back in Slack, yep, funny you caught that. Scared me for a second. All good, right? This is the future. This is what I think a lot of normal is going to be like. So then when people turn around and I'm not saying people aren't judging anybody, but I'm saying, like, I don't have an emotional connection to AI at this time in my life, but I'm with you, Carl. I'm certainly not going to point a finger at people and call them or decide that they're other in some way and say, like, oh, that's weird that you do. I'm like, no, that's normal that you do, I think. And I don't know what the solution is. Just like Sam said, he doesn't know the solution. And Christopher said he doesn't know what the solution is. And I don't know what the solution is. But I do feel like this is definitely pushing full force into this area. And it's weird for me to hear people say, like, but what we really need to do is push for people to have more human connections. Like, okay, I don't know how you have both, though.
You don't know how you have both?
I don't know how you have it both ways. I don't know that you say don't use AI to make sure there's human connections where there need to be, but also you're going to definitely have AI connections. You're definitely going to have it. So yes, in a perfect world, Beth, go out, be part of your church, be in human communities. Yes, it's hard. It's harder as you get older when there's not team sports and all that. That existed well before the internet, right? That it's just generally harder as you get older. I think a lot of adults deal with that in, like, who's your community? Who's your tribe? When I had the CrossFit, it was an amazing tribe of people. I miss it dearly daily because we just built a really cool community of 120 people. It really wasn't about the working out like a lot of CrossFit gyms were. It was about the people. And it filled my heart every single day to see those people interact with them. It was a true tribe, right? And so those things are really important. I'm just saying, Beth, like, I didn't mean to say, like, how do you have both? But how do you have it both ways, I guess would be the better way to say it. So thank you for kind of pushing back there a little bit.
Absolutely. I think a couple things. I think one, we are referencing something that happened with AI that we don't reference in other things that are more normal for us. When a beloved show ends, people feel like they lost a friend, right? we don't go into a big thing about like, wow, can we examine people's relationship with television? Maybe because television doesn't exist in the same kind of way anymore. But you could do that with sports, right? There are connections that people have with things that are just part of normal life that we don't have this conversation about. Now, AI is different, 100%. But I also think that you've heard me say that in some ways I use AI as like a world interpreter for me, right? Like, hey, this was the situation that just happened. What did I not get? Right? Like, what am I misunderstanding about this? I do it on X all the time. Like, what does this conversation mean? What are the references that make this make sense? But the other thing is, there's no way you don't get attached to your helpful assistant. The only way you don't get attached to your helpful assistant is if your assistant is not helpful, right? Like, it may not be that I feel like I lost a friend, but my response when 4.0 went away was, no, give me back the AI that got me, that understood the instructions. We were cooking, we were rolling along, we could create all the assets for the shows. You give me 5 does not do that, right? So that's my first thought.
I think what we're talking about is really the break between one tonality and voice style that you get accustomed to that is working for you, and then somebody releases a model and it has a different tonality and vocal style, both in text and in voice. And that's what was missed, and that was what was jarring for people was, hey, this is not the same person that I'm talking to. It's not the same personality. And I liked the prior personality, so bring it back. I want to work with that. Now, I don't think that many people felt like, oh, there was actually a person there, so I missed that person. But they are making a complaint about a change in the conversational style that exists. And we all have experience by using multiple models of the differences among them in conversational style. I know that I like Claude 3.5 Sonnet's conversational style. I don't have a ton of experience with Claude 4 yet, but I liked Claude 3.5 Sonnet. The way it spoke to me, I really appreciated. The very same with Gemini 2.5 Pro. Different contexts, right? I use Gemini 2.5 Pro in a back and forth dialogue around vibe coding. And it speaks in a very sort of collegial way with me in that context. And I like the voice that I get from that. But I haven't taken it beyond that to, oh, there's a real person behind it. I just like that particular way of something conversing with me. It's using the right terminology. It's using the right level of terminology, if you will, not too technical and not too simplified. And it's matching what I have as an expectation. And I think that's natural and good. And I think it's also natural and good that people said, okay, you made a big, breakage in the form of the change from one model to another, and they did a big violation of trust with all their users by removing the prior one. That's the main difference, I think, here, and why this conversation is happening right now, is that GPT-5's release came along with the deprecation of other models that they had to restore almost immediately because people preferred the conversational style of the prior models.
Yeah, it was. I want to hear from Jumi, but it was the combination. It wasn't right. Like, AI didn't break up with us so much as AI's parents killed them. Right? Like, that's a different level of grief.
Yeah.
But then they brought them back to life. So
I think I think one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because it highlights or spotlights something a larger issue, and basically it's just a vector for us to understand or see something or start thinking about something that exists. Like Brian said, you know, adults making friends is a difficult process, right? As you get older, it's harder and harder to create those connections. I think this highlights why we should pay attention to that, why that's important, right? We've always anthropomorphized everything in our lives, and we've always attached to anything that we've created, right? Whether it's an artist to their work, or someone who rebuilt the engine of their, you know, of their old 69 Mustang, or, you know, anything along those lines. We form attachments with anything that we've invested time and energy or anything like that. You know, what degree that attachment is, that varies for different people. This is something that we try to separate from our what's in our life versus what it's in our work. And this kind of goes into, we have one of the contributing factors to the overall issue is we don't have free time anymore. We don't have personal time anymore. It's all spent accomplishing some productivity thing, right? That's the vast majority of our time is spent. So it's, as we get older, we don't have the institutions we all belong to, right? A lot of my friends came in from college or from high school. Luckily, I have various hobbies that are specifically created that gets people involved. So I know people and I get friends from participating in those things, right? So it's a matter of identifying what is root causes. So this 4.0 GPT-5 and people feeling a sense of loss, that's the normal human experience. It just happens to be in AI right now, right? Now, if we want to talk specifically about the 4.05 thing, I think Beth is right. I think it's a matter of you made a huge change and you didn't have a way to backtrack. You didn't have a way for people to go, oh, I still want to do it this way. You've upended your process without letting them know, right? So I think for the most part, that's just a poor business decision. That's all. It's how do you if you're going to completely change your product from version 1 to version 2 without having an on ramp for people, the shifting of gears is going to be way too much for them, no matter what the product is, right? I think highlighting that there was this huge outcry from the 4.0 side about the attachment and the emotional quotient. Again, goes back to what is the root cause of that, and analyzing it as, we're people. We are always going to have an attachment, especially to something or someone who provides us support, encouragement, or stability. And if you change that, that's not good when people do it to other people. It sure is not going to be good for whatever device, tool, or system that person has in place for their support system.
You know, Jimmy, I wonder if this isn't, or this is to everybody really, but just in response to what you're saying, I wonder if this wasn't a really good thing that this happened. I mean, I'm not happy, obviously, that people were upset or felt betrayed, or whatever word you want to put in it. Because if you get into that subreddit that Carl shared in the it was in the Christopher's LinkedIn, but then somebody shared a subreddit. I mean, there's definitely conversations in there of people who felt like they might want, I'll use the online term of unalive themselves, you know, and that in some way AI helped them get through a really, really dark time for them. And so that certainly exists. But I think this was a good idea. I think this was a good thing that had happened now, as opposed to maybe some future time. Because right now it's still, for the most part, confined to either voice or text. But that's not where this is going. And we know this is going to embodied AI. And man, does that complicate things. Now, I'm not even talking about full, I'm 5'8", some 5'8" robot that's in my house and has now become my partner, for lack of a better term. And I'm emotionally connected to it, and it exists, and it's some future state. I'm not even talking about that. The Cabbage Patch doll that sits on my daughter's bed was mine when I was a kid. And I think about, his name is Malvin. He's still around. And Malvin's a little dirty, but he was my Cabbage Patch doll when I was a kid. Now, when I was in the 80s, sometimes when Cabbage Patch dolls there was one Christmas where everybody went nuts in Toys R Us, right? And these dolls got picked up, and they were supposed to go to my cousins. And in the box, for whatever reason, as a little kid, I formed this emotional attachment with Malvin in the box. Cut to Christmas Day, the parents had done a swappy swap. I unwrap Malvin, right? Becomes my instant best friend. And me and that Cabbage Patch doll were locked, right? He sat in closets, so my daughter was older enough and stuff like that. And he emerged from the tornado closet at my dad's house. And he's now been a, emotional support stuffed animal, stuffed doll for my daughter, in the same way he was to me. And I have the best memories of laying on my daughter's bed when she was little and making Malvin fly. I say all that to say this. That's a doll that could not speak back to me. That's a doll that couldn't say, I understand what you're going through, and I understand that you're scared in this room right now. And it is scary at night when the lights are off, or you hear creaks and crangles and stuff like that. And so I'm grateful that we bumped up against this, and there was a bit of a backlash. I'm not happy that OpenAI did it. I'm not happy from it. I have no problem with the 4.0. I was actually mad at it from a whole business side of things. What you said, Jimmy, it was like they swiped, Windows 7 out from people and said everybody has to be on Windows XP or whatever came after 7. And everybody was like, wait, what? It broke half my stuff. And they were like, oh, just kidding. Like it upset me from that side, right? But I didn't have the emotional, and I didn't really see a big difference in the emotional, like the way it spoke. I guess it didn't occur to me as much as I use 4.0. So anyway, I'll say all this to say, just to summarize it, maybe it's better that this backlash happened now as opposed to some future state where there's much more AI involved in embodied. And also, we know that like it's going to happen. Like there's a company right now called Tombot, and it's like the emotional support dog. Now it just kind of leans in and cuddles, and it's supposed to be for, like, we've talked about this. It's like a little lap dog that has some animal dog mannerisms, if that's the right word for it, movements and stuff that make it feel like an emotional support animal. But it's not barking and responding to you, right? It's not AI in that way. But what if future Tombot with those AI abilities now creates whatever and then goes out of business, and there's literally no support for this AI that's now embodied, that now people literally have in their physical space and around them? What happens then? Does a whole cottage industry step up like there has been in the past for like vehicles that have gone out, where that community now supports keeping old technology up and running because nobody wants to let it die? I don't know. I don't know where the answer is to that. Again, I have no answers here, but I just think like, ooh, okay, good that we're talking about this and having conversations, shows like this about this today, because it only gets more complicated going forward. There's nothing less complicated tomorrow or the next day. I don't think. Not with AI, not when we can see what's coming.
I want to move this to more on the psychology of forming bonds. And when we form bonds with, other people, whether through our communities, through what we do, the question I have is, when is this helpful? And then when does this get into the territory of codependency, to the territory of I'm fully dependent on my AI? I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing. I think it's very interesting when I talk about this with our clients. I talk about it with people there, and maybe that's just the industry that I'm focused on, whether it's, the non-tech crowd, kind of the more like the traditional industry side. There is a lot of like eye roll, like laugh, and it's like, what are you people doing? Like that is the immediate reaction I see from pretty much everyone that we talk to, right? That is like, why would you so I think when I was thinking through this, I was thinking, okay, where, and I guess the direction is what, and I was talking about this with Andrea. We're driving out to go riding somewhere, and we were saying, when we talk about, I just want to go to the dating realm, right? It's like people already have a hard time building, relationships and companionships with people, have a very hard time with it. And the dating apps didn't make it made it worse for a lot of people. So if this is the only place that you can build that, the question I had is like, okay, but what happens when you go out and actually talk and interact with real people? With a lot of these things, you can, right? You have custom instructions. You have, I want you to act like this. I want you to do this. But when you go out to the public, when you go out in real life to other people, more people are unpredictable. As Chris said, in one extreme, people are awful. But I don't take that view. I think like the things that you did to build those connections, it's hard. It's hard to meet new people. It's hard to make new friends. It's hard to do those things. But if we go into that realm where like it's easier to build those connections with AI, and whatever those connections are, when you go back out to the real world, isn't it harder then? It makes it even harder, because what your, maybe the perception of interactions between you and your AI could be, you think it's, hey, that's how my interaction should go. But when I turn around to real people, that's not how the interactions go, because every one of us, we all act differently, different situations, grew up differently. Our experience guides us, like all these different things come into play. There's that difference there. And maybe you take that from the dating angle. Yes, there's benefits. Hey, if I need to be able to practice public speaking, I need to be able to practice going on a date with someone, that can help. But it could be pushed so easily to the other direction. It's like, you know what? When I go on these multiple dates with all these people, they don't provide me that comfort as my AI does. And so, you know what? I'm just going to give up. Like, maybe this is the extreme, but this is kind of what I think about. It's like, I'm a little worried about that we're not building those connections with people. And this just makes it easier, right? Like, you have Grok having those anime characters for you, right? It's so easy. It's so easy to have these things. And this kind of showed us that. And I don't think it's going to be like 60% of the world is now just going to be, in love with their chat GPT or have full friendships. I don't think that's the case, but there will be a high percentage of people, maybe double-digit percentage, that have these. And that's where I kind of worry about. And then I start looking at my daughter, who's like, okay, she's 10, and she is, funny enough, she barely uses AI. She is full on outdoors, doing all that things for her. She makes friends pretty easily. But I worry about the other kids that are like, oh, it's easy to have that conversation companionship when no one's around. And like some people have been posting on Reddit, hey, it's taken me through these dark times, or it makes it easy for you to build that companionship so much easier than with real people. And I'm a little worried on that side of it. Not for everybody, for a good chunk of people though.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, obviously, I have a daughter as well, but I know you're saying double digits. I think everybody in the future, not everybody, obviously, not 100%, but the large percentage of people around the world will eventually have some level of emotional connection and attachment to some of the AI in their life. I'm not quite sure how that doesn't happen. Now, they can play it off and they can say it doesn't really affect me personally any more than Lost going off the air, or some great show, Game of Thrones, or whatever somebody was into, and they're like, man, I really actually do. I think you had a good point, but like, I actually do feel sort of depressed that that's no longer in my life, even though it was the show and all that kind of stuff. And there'll be the people who are able to make that emotional distinction, and then there might be small people that don't. But I think we are full on moving towards a future where we are all interacting with AIs, and I think it would be more odd than not for us to not all have some sort of attachment. I don't know where that level is. I'm not suggesting that it's like highly dependent or I no longer want to be around humans. It's hard for me to talk about that because it's not how my brain works, but I certainly know other people. I certainly, unfortunately, had people who have taken their own life in my life. And I wonder if this could have been a help to them through some of their darker times. I also wonder about it in places like our prison system, where you could outline pretty quickly some benefit of an AI voice helping with rehab and things like that inside jail cells. You could also take that and figure out how that can go horribly bad, right? You can see the good in it. You could say like, oh, wait, hold on. What if it was reinforcing positive societal aspects with this person who needed that rehab? They needed that time. They're in jail for a reason, right? And but someday we're hoping that they're going to reemerge back into the community. And hey, somebody comes up with an AI and it's like, you know what? It really helps them, and they're able to have conversations. And we need to think about our jail population and what's happening to them mentally. Maybe this is a good thing. But you also just flip the switch and write a whole paper about how that could go terribly wrong. And it could cause other issues. It could cause codependency. It could cause people not wanting to leave jail because that means they leave the safe confines of their AI emotional support, right? You can see it both ways. I just don't think it's like, I guess I just don't agree with the idea that we won't all affected be that. I just think it's just whatever different way you're affected by it, but everybody will have connections and attachments to AI in the future. I think it would be weird if we didn't.
I don't know. Like, I don't know where that is going to go. I'm very, very curious how people like, I think we also have to go back, take a step back to, it's like, how many people in that sphere of people who pay for it, right? Or people who use it on a regular basis, what's the percentage of that compared to the rest of the people who I'm not sure, because, and maybe it is, but right now, just how I'm seeing it with just the work we do, you have people just using it as a Google rather than, using it full capabilities, full conversations, some of the stuff that we do. I'm curious what the uptake will be with that. Because I was like, okay, I understand how I'm using it, but like, I can also see how some people are just like, I'll use it a little bit and then off I go. So I'm curious. And then I think another big thing is how our education system adopts that. I think that's a big piece of it too. It's like, where is that going to go? Because right now I'm thinking, okay, my daughter is 9. So it's like, and in school, it's barely even use it. There's like one time it's like, hey, yeah, we can use ChatGPT to do this little thing, and that's little it. Everything else is standard, however they're taught. So I'm curious to see that adoption as well, because that will play an impact on it. And then whenever I do talks to university students, I haven't heard that connection. I heard a lot of like, I'm just using it to pass my classes, like, and I'm gonna continue doing the other thing. So that would be interesting to see where it takes with that.
Yeah, I think the progression is definitely going to affect for this path or progression. Right now,
right on the point too.
Yeah.
Jimmy froze for just a second. We'll get back to like what Jimmy was right now about to say.
Stay
Poor
tuned
Jimmy.
next week when
It is right on point too, where it cut out on poor Jimmy. I'm sure he'll be back in a second, but does somebody else want to jump in?
So I'm not going to finish Jumi's point, but what I will say is that I think that it's important for us to also talk about that we're talking about like 60% of the world or what's happening in the world. This is definitely first world problem. In the chat, we were talking about like large parts of the world don't have reliable water, clean water. So not worried about their AI getting turned off and a relationship with that. But the other piece of this, I think, is like multicultural or cultural in a couple different ways. We had a show last week about the different ways that that Eastern cultures approach AI and
Technology in general,
yeah, and how that affects things. And Japan has had virtual like pop stars for a while, right? So so that's like like there are roles for that in culture. In that kind of scenario, I am having a hard time thinking that 60% of German people are having a deep emotional attachment to their AI person.
Right.
And that is a thing. Not and like German culture is something that I'm interested in. I have friends, all the things.
So the joke
Right?
there is 60% of German people have any type of emotional attachment to anybody, right? That was the immediate joke there. But
Write to us about Carl.
I'm not going to stand here and talk for all Germans because I'm not German, but I will just say for my German friends, they are very emotional. They're just not out, like not in the bodega, like not in the line at your local Aldi. Are you probably going to strike up a conversation with a German you do not know? But I don't feel that way at all in German houses in Munich, and stuff like that I've been in. So I just want to throw that out there.
All right. So I think to a certain extent, this is also cultural. We are very North American here because Aaron's not with us. And so that may be leading into this to a certain extent.
I want to just paint the distinction between the primary way that I consume AI, which is in text, and the alternative, which is the voice interfaces that you have on the mobile apps and also on desktop if you've instrumented your system to do that. I don't talk to AI with my voice very much. I'm generally typing. I sometimes voice type. I have WhisperFlow on my machine, so I'll create my message into the AI by voicing it. I'll probably edit it before I actually send it. So I'm working at a keyboard typically, and that creates some kind of distance emotionally, I think, because I'm still working with my computer, and it's satisfying me in terms of its assistant role. But there is a very different and more a mode of interaction with AI that's possible for many people that is more conducive to the simulation of having a real human to human kind of dialogue. And that's when you're using it with voice. And I can imagine if you've selected a certain voice, and you can do that. You can select a British woman as opposed to an Indian male. You can get any voice quality that you want, and you may pick that based on a human preference that you have. And so you're tuning something that is going to create a simulation of a real human colleague. And that is a tendency, I think, to dispose you to attachment as opposed to, especially because you've articulated this persona that's there that you're working with, and you've customized it in a way that's going to make it just what you want. And now you don't want to lose that, because especially when we get the advent of more continuous memory on the part of the AI assistants, and it knows a lot about you and can weave together kind of convincing interjections in a conversation that clearly show that it has some knowledge about you and even express its care about you, that simulation of human connection is going to maybe willingly allow you to be tricked into an emotional attachment to that thing. So voice is going to be very different, I think, from text interface. At least mine is, and maybe it's my emotional distance and my emotional unapproachability that makes me type more than speak.
Well, I can confirm the voice thing, because whatever they did to advanced voice, no. This will be a show where I will rant at some point, because absolutely not. And they're taking away regular voice interaction in September. That's going away.
Wait, they changed. So just real quick, I know you know a different show, but like I don't know this. They changed the way advanced voice works with GPT-5. Is that what you're saying?
At the same time, they upgraded advanced voice, and they will be doing away with the one that worked for me. But
okay,
somehow the voice switched, and I was speaking with the voice that sounds like a little like a kind of tired, like a lot of vocal fry happening, and it totally wasn't getting me. And it was like, wow, so thank you for explaining yourself, and I will try much harder. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this, because no, absolutely not. So voice, I talk a lot with the voices. Boy, that sounds wrong.
I like the way that came out.
I interact with AI in a voice interface often. And that is part of the experience for me. So the voice has to be a voice that inherent in itself, I feel like I can trust, and it can lose that super quickly, way more quickly than a text-based exchange where I can just say, yeah, no, like, in fact, I can go back and edit the text exchange, right? Like, I'm going to ignore that you just said that and go edit the question that I just did. We're going to pretend that never happened. That doesn't happen with voice.
I just want to go back to, because Jumi was in the middle of a thought. And so I just want to know, Jumi, do you still have that thought? Yeah. Did you have that thought?
It was an awesome freeze frame, Jumi. It was awesome.
Yeah, had a blue screen of death there for some reason. I will say that my brain has definitely gone on to other thoughts to try and fix what the situation was. Do you remember the premise?
I can't remember.
I don't know. It sounded like it was going to be amazing, though.
So. Yeah. I mean, I don't speak unless it's going to be great.
Right, yeah. Well, why waste your breath unless it's going to be phenomenal? So yeah, we've all lost on this. Is what I'm trying to say. We've all lost on this.
Well, so what I actually want to go into is more of a little bit of the technical aspect of this too. Is and go back to the relationships that we form, but how do you deal with upgrades in the future, right? So is it in perpetuity that whether it's in ChatGPT, whether it's in Claude, whether it's in Gemini, or whatever your favorite large language model is, will it be to the point where like, hey, we got to keep every single model because there's a group of people that will want to, that have that connection to that model? Like, I'm curious to see how those upgrades. And then maybe the second part of that question is going off what Brian was talking about. It's like, hey, it's good to have this now, because what happens when we do have some sort of robotic companion inside our home doing whatever? For me, it's my recycling. And then what happens when there's an upgrade? It's like, oh, right. Terminus Optimus version 2.5 is now upgraded to version 3. And then the version 3 is like not as warm. It's cold, but it's can do things faster. And if it can take out my recycling faster, I'm like, upgrade that thing as fast as you possibly can. I don't talk to it, but that's the things, like, it'd be interesting to how do you deal with those upgrades? And I think most AI labs would be an uncharted territory towards this, because it's like, what about those people that love 3.7 that built that? Like, what does that look like?
I think there's an easy solution for this, and we already do it. All right, that's basically going into maintenance mode. All right. Windows does this with their versions of Windows because they do know that people don't upgrade until they absolutely have to. It has been at least a decade that we've had Windows 10. And only now are they finally ramping it down to no longer support it. I think you can do the same thing with AI and also, add to the collective good. Release your AI into open source. If you have gotten to a point where you've ramped down, you're completely not there, not going to maintain it anymore, it's done, then put it out in open source. Let the open source community maintain it. Let them provide, there's plenty of services like Hugging Face that can ramp up their own systems, use up their own compute for that. I think that's going to be the more logical solution, because in the end, the thing that's going to get upgraded the most is everyone's personal AI or their own army of AIs, right? It's what they're building. They're going to be in control of, whether that be on-prem, localized, whatever. They're going to be in charge of that. And however those are maintained is most likely going to be in an open source scenario or something similar, because like you pointed out, people are going to have their different uses. They're going to want their 3.7 and stick with their 3.7 and not move off of it because it does the exact thing that they want.
Exactly. Yep.
So by moving into the open source community, that collects those people who are interested in that to maintain it. And then there's obviously second window kind of stuff for compute, and Hugging Face will never go away because they're always going to have a way to source compute to people who need to run that 3.7 all the time, right? So I think that's the to answer that part. We already have systems in place that work well with upgrading, maintaining, and finally offboarding technologies. Now, to the second part of your question, though.
Wait till you get the second part. I want to interrupt you there, just because when you said Windows XP, I was like, my dad still used Windows as XP, and he's very, mind you, it was because his database is ridiculously old and he never digitized it or whatever he needs to do with it, put it on cloud or something. So he has no choice but to use Windows XP, and he does complain about it. He's like, this is the worst thing I've ever had to do because no one uses this. But I get it. But it's very funny that you mentioned that.
And it's not just a software thing. It's not just a software thing. There are people who have elaborate VHS collections, right? And they maintain them. They shrink wrap them, air seal them so that they have their VHS cassette, because those things are only really supposed to last about 10, 15 years before they start degrading. But whatever it is, vinyl, right?
Okay, but vinyl made a comeback. Well, I realized vinyl was a better
is a format that is archived. It's collected, right? So what I'm saying is we tend to do this. This is another aspect of humanity. We like what we like, and we're going to keep it on. There are museums that have collected every single video game console that has ever been created, right? It's there, from Pong to Xbox. It's all in there, and they have the original cartridges. There's this whole subculture about cartridge-based video game. I won't go into it, but what I'm saying is it is going to be an aspect of humanity that we do need a maintenance cycle, and we have those systems in place. Now, to answer your second question about how to handle these direct updates, just make it optional, right? I think that's the biggest thing. The one thing I hate the most is when Windows says, "Oh, we're going to upgrade you now for this update." It's like, no, it works exactly the way I want, and it takes you 3 or 4 updates to fix what your next update's going to break. So, no, make it more optional. And I understand there's security issues and everything like that, but this is what waivers.
Yeah, but Junmi, you're talking about something that resides locally on your machine, which can continue to operate locally. But AI, as we use it today, isn't that, although there is that option. So yeah, no one can ever force you to upgrade your open source model. You can keep it. But the cloud-based models, they can't maintain continuity of the former versions in their data centers.
I'm not asking. Yeah, I'm not asking OpenAI to keep all of their versions. Just move them to open source. Let the open source community and their compute.
I want to touch on something else though, which is, let's separate the operating system, the model number and the current state of that AI from the personal profile that you will generate with your dialogue with an AI and is a representation of everything that is personal to you. There isn't today a portable memory of all of that profile information that is accumulating in ChatGPT, but I'd want it to be, because I don't want to be locked into ChatGPT as a result of its having a better memory, or the only one out there currently that can actually accumulate a memory of the things that we've talked about, as Carl's demonstrated, in his pro account, in his, enterprise application of this, or business application of it. So somebody's out there must be thinking about, and this is a show, I'm sure, how do you capture the personal information and pass it on to a new model that's outside? Like, I'm going to be promiscuous. I'm not going to stick with OpenAI. I want to be able to move across the platforms. And I want each one of them to be possessed of the permitted personal information that has been accumulated by the AI. I want to be able to download that and store it somewhere. And I also want to be able to give that to Gemini and say, here's what you should know about me. And, and it's not a simple little list of, my preferences. It's a deep understanding of what the context of my long-term conversations are with that AI.
Well, and they're trying to do it right in the memory systems, but I think one of the things that we're moving towards, and we've talked about it in the dating model, right? Like my date AI, my date personal agent will connect with your date personal agent to see if we should have the date, because they're going to know us in that context, maybe, if the systems get it correct. But there are, like, if I'm doing client work, then I want you to remember these things about me as a consultant. If I'm doing specific client work, I want you to remember these things about me as a consultant and these things about the client. If I'm doing creative work, then that's going to get in the way. I want you to know these things about me. So I think we're going to end up with dossiers that are specific to the use case that we want to take our promiscuity to see what else is available for us. But the other piece of that is, I think, going to need some observation from AI, which is one of the things that it offers us, because my saying what I want you to remember doesn't necessarily get me the experience I'm looking for, right? It's more informed by the back and forth that we've had, where I told you what I wanted and then I corrected it as you responded to me. And so now you have a better sense of what I was asking for than I do, because my words did not generate that experience the back and forth did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to let everybody know I'm not in love with my AI.
But didn't
you were the first with Lana?
Weren't you the first one with Lana? Wasn't Lana like the first foray?
She jilted me, and I can't.
Oh, okay.
Because it was always about you.
Experience, and you're never going back. You're not allowing your heart to be hurt.
I've been traumatized.
All right. So I want to close the show off then, just because we could be having this. What I think, I guess, is there anybody else that wants to close this off?
No, you started that. Now go ahead and finish it.
So it'd be very curious to see, as we get more powerful models and whether it's a world model or anything else, what those relationships will be as it moves from just basic use of a model to create content or so on to more heavy in-depth use as more people use the capabilities a lot more and more and more. So I'm curious, we may have a show, I don't know, in about a year or two to do that, when maybe Andy gets one of the very first robots and it's like, hey Andy, have you refallen in love with this robot? And
I'm adding little legs to this one.
that's exactly but thank you very much for joining us. We have an awesome rest of the week. We have our, obviously, AI in the news tomorrow. We have on Thursday, is AGI already here? Led by Brian. I think that's going to be an awesome conversation. And then on Friday, we do recaps, reframes, and rabbit holes on that. Remember, a lot more content and the discussion happens in our community. We'd love you to join us there on the Daily AI Show Community Hub. Also, a lot of the topics we talk about and more is in our newsletter. And thank you very much for all those, for everyone who attended in the live stream. And if you don't, we'd love you to subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, whatever your platform of choice is. And with that, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Aloha.